Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matyash, and welcome, Azura Jayde.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Have a chat.
I usually don't. I've had a few people from Australia on, but obviously the time differences. I usually don't shoot this late at night, and this is very early in the morning for you. This is like almost 9 in the morning right now, and it's crazy the
Yeah.
time difference. Usually it's the other way around. But yeah, I found you on Facebook, and you're
Mhm.
doing something different. You're a coach for, is it sexual issues, right?
No, not sexual. I mean, it can be sexual issues,
Oh yeah.
but it is coaching people or just guiding them back to themselves through their own life force sexual energy. And it can be brought to their attention in a sexual way that there's something there for them to work on, like in relationships, or it could just be platonic relationships where they find there's an issue and that sexual energy and using the methods that we use
Mm,
helps shift that, because it's not just in the sexual areas of our life that it affects, because we're so interconnected. We're not just one dimensional, so wherever we pull one string, it pulls a whole heap of others
oh
and
yeah,
creates like a massive flow and effect in our life. So
that's so true.
yeah,
Even if
it affects
you,
everything.
even if you're deficient in just like one vitamin or something, that's gonna throw you off your body, and you might develop a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a let's say a suppressed emotion in your body, and you don't deal with it, and then eventually there's gonna be something that's gonna call your attention, where disease or some rash or something that's gonna happen,
Exactly.
right?
And that's usually how somebody can come to work with myself or my partner or both of us, is either their relationships have progressively gotten worse because they haven't learnt the lesson that they should have when it was quite minor. So now it's literally screaming at them, or their partner's literally screaming at them because that's the situation they've ended up in and it's the only way they'll listen. Or they've gone from being this really healthy person that can go and go and go all day to struggling to get out of bed because they feel like they have no purpose in their life because they've been out of alignment for so many years
Mm,
that their body is just like, I'm not in anymore. So you can figure this out now because I'm done.
right. So how
Yeah.
did you stumble upon this work? Because this is quite specific work that you're doing, quite a niche, but in a way it's kind of
Yeah.
unique.
Mm-hmm. It definitely didn't start out this way.
Right.
my my career primarily has been in mining and oil and gas,
Oh
on
wow.
$40 billion projects in oil and gas, and then through,
In Australia.
yeah, in Australia, yeah,
Yeah.
so huge construction projects. Um, I'm working on, the contracts and site administration and keeping
Okay.
things all in line there, and working
So
with the
you were like
project
admin
managers.
or accounting, logistics or something?
It depended on the position. Sometimes out there, I would be the only person who would do administration that kind of held it all together, because it would be remote where, there's nothing for 400 kilometers around you. So, um, yeah, it just depends on the job. Like the
Yeah.
biggest one I've ever worked on, we executed the contract, and that was $40 billion contract. So
40 billion.
we, yeah,
Holy. Is that what's the contract of this involve? Is it like
it's,
constructing a small city or something?
I mean, we have so many workers out on the sites that it actually required a police station to be built out there and manned
Oh,
by police, just because of the capacity. It's needed when you have 5,000 workers. There is inevitably going to be,
strife.
a need. Yeah, at some
Yeah.
point, it doesn't have to be much, but it has to be there. And because it was on a remote island off the coast of Australia, not very far, but off the coast, a police officer could just get in his car and drive down there. It would be a flight over. So, um, it was a construction of a liquefied natural gas plant where they were drilling subsea and bringing the gas onto land.
Oh yeah. Well, for that kind of money, it's worth it in an investment, because then they get the return of their investment, I guess. And
yeah, it's pretty much already sold. The gas is already sold before, you know,
it's
even
sold.
built.
It's sold like it's what they're gonna export. It's already sold.
Yeah, so they turn it into liquefied natural gas for travel, so it's not as combustible, I guess, as gas, vapor, and it travels in huge tanks in ships, like massive ships, and they fill them. And one that I worked on in Darwin primarily was being shipped to Japan after the tsunami took out Fukushima and their nuclear plant. So they got a lot of their energy back through the gas that this particular project brought in, you know, so it was heavily Japanese company funded as well. So yeah, it was pretty much all purchased beforehand, and I guess that's where a lot of the money comes from as well. It's like, you know, real estate. The apartments are sold before they build.
Right.
Like a little drawing, or, you know, a little figurine that's this big in the sales place, you know.
Yeah, well, if they're lucky. If they're unlucky, then it's not everything's sold yet. So then they have to, so how did you then transition from that kind of work into, do you still have a regular job, by the way? Or
no?
No. Okay, so this is primarily what you do now.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So what started it?
So back in 2016, I had, no, the end of 2015, I ended a relationship that I found out I was in for almost 2 years, and found out that my partner, and I was living with this person, was actually married.
Oh my God.
And so I left my job, which was on one of the gas plants, and I relocated to another part of Australia. And I was like, I'm done with men for now. And I just kept to myself, and not like a blaming all men thing. I was just like, I'm done. I don't need a relationship. I don't need any intimacy or anything right now. I just need time for me and to figure out why, you know, because I was that person where the universe was like, hey, it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. And then it looked like it was getting better, but I was blind or in denial, one of the two or both, about the situation I was in. So that then took me to really dive into why that was happening. And then, so I took that 6 months to really figure out, like, why was I calling this kind of person into my life? You know, I was like, I don't deserve this. This is not who I am. This is not who I want to be with.
Right.
And then I really worked on myself, and then I was like tested, and I ended up in a relationship where I actually had to have a restraining order put in place for this person.
Oh, wow.
And that was like the end for me. So I was like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm really diving into myself on a level that I had never before. And I have always been quite intuitive, and sort of, doesn't mean I'd listen to it though.
Right.
And then I was part of just a Facebook group online of, like, it was spiritual based. And then one morning, this person popped up co-hosting, and it ended up being who my fiance is now. And there was just this immediate connection when I saw his face. I'd never seen him before, never heard of his name. And I messaged him and we started chatting, and 5 months later he flew out to Australia. We're engaged, and the journey really started with him on where it's evolved to now, and diving into the sexual healing side of things.
Where is he from? He's from New Zealand or something?
No, he's from California. He's from San Diego.
Okay.
So that and the past 3.5 years or 3.5 years has been a spiral up and down of really figuring out who I am. We're such mirrors to each other that we've cleared a lot of like shit that we had to on an individual level and relationship, and really gotten down to what makes us tick and how to. It's one thing to recognize something that is going wrong in your life, or where how you're being triggered, or going, oh, I'm triggered,
Yeah.
versus, oh, I'm triggered and now I understand why. And then again, going, oh, okay, this is how I can fix it,
Right.
and really recognizing that.
How did you, before you met him, did you do, sounds like you did some kind of work before.
Sorry, I'm all
Sounds like you
fuzzy.
did some kind of work. Like, did you go to, I don't know, psychoanalysis, or did you like do some kind of shadow work, or what did you do before you met him? Sounds like you did something. You were doing something.
Yeah. So I was just really focusing on myself. My practices every morning would be I had a script written out that it was like if you were to read a movie script of
Mm.
how I wanted my life to be. And I would read it every morning before I woke up, before I checked my phone,
Oh,
and
wow.
every night before I went to bed. And it was on my phone, but I'd always turn off my data, so I had zero notifications to distract me beforehand. Um, and it would say, it would, I'd put in there the things that I would change it every week. So I had like a magical question for the week, like, um, how can I see the magic in the mundane, or whatever it may be, something that got me to question that throughout the whole day, and then remind myself of that in the night in case my day got sidetracked somewhere. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was always a thought. And then how I wanted my life to feel every day, not just look like. So it was like a very manifestation based of, and really seeing the vision of what I wanted my life to look like, but more so feeling it, like really recognizing that manifestation isn't just, oh, I want $1 million and this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
It's how do I make my vibration available to actually hold $1 million, not just have it show up in the bank, like so many lottery winners, and they end up bankrupt,
Right.
2 years later, because they can't actually hold that amount of money in them, in their vibration. And who I wanted to call in a partner. And I teamed that up with self pleasure every single morning. Um, and
Okay.
then I would just sit in with it, whether it was with like meditation music or like binaural beats, and ask myself to just let go. And then if there was anything that wanted to come up that I needed to be shown, to show me, whether it was for the day or for, what was coming, or today might be a little bit challenging, so just remember to surrender and relax, or
Right.
breathe. Um, and in my script as well, I also had the kind of partner I wanted to call in, not what they look like, but who they were as a person, which
The
then
soul, like,
also,
yeah.
yeah, and their characteristics. And that also made me reflect on who I was, because I can't expect somebody to be something if I'm not willing to be that kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I think, a really important part of that. I dive really deep into my abilities with tarot cards, and the ability to read those and interpret, not just a card, but
Mm-hmm.
listen very intuitively to be able to give more than just what the card says, and hear all of that. And channel information for people when they need it, and friends and family and myself. And then when I met my fiance, Orion, then it just kind of went from there. And we've really come to realize the importance of our sovereignty, and our right to freedom as an individual. And your individuality really starts to become apparent when your sexual life force energy becomes dynamic in your sacral chakra, when it comes up from your root. And that's where our individuality is born. You know, it's where we decide that we're no longer part of that root tribe mind of the family and society. We get to decide who we are, what our relationships looks like.
From the root chakra.
How creative we want to be in the sacral.
Oh, okay.
So the root chakra is very family, tribe-minded, and your foundation, and there is sexual energy there, but it becomes dynamic when it hits your sacral. So it can be moved around. And
sacral is like the second chakra, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you know that to do visualization? Did you like read books about it, or did you just figure this might be the way? Did you like watch The Secret or something, or like it sounds like you kind of knew that to go into this and to try to program yourself in a it was almost like if you were doing affirmations like every day, every morning.
So I had a mentor, and I was in the group with the mentor and the other people, and they were heavily manifestation based, and just adapting from that and what I learned in there, and then how it worked for me and what I saw, and then just growing from there. Then I guess once you see that side of things, it's not that big of a jump really to go from going, oh, I have to feel it, and then if I can't feel it, why? It can be a bit of a hard jump though, because if you can't feel it, there's something blocking you, and if there's something blocking you, then it's your fault, you know. So you have to take ownership and responsibility of that, and that's where it can become difficult, because nobody really wants to look at the shit that they've caused, or the, you know, the problems that they've created for their own life. And yeah, I guess that's, Ori and I were just talking about that really deeply yesterday in a course we're developing around consent and boundaries, and how I guess that kind of segues in really nicely with the consent and boundaries, because like with censorship, you know, on social media and with governments, we feel that censorship is the way it is because people are willing to hand over their right to set a boundary because they're scared of the consequences that may arise out of their right to choose or to set their own boundaries. So they give it to somebody else to decide.
Right.
So they hand their power over.
Right, but you're not a fan of this giving your power over away. You like all about personal power, right?
Sorry, it's really crackly. I might try some other headphones and see if it's my end.
Okay. Might be better than before. Okay. After some technical difficulties, we're back. All right.
Awesome.
What were we talking about? I was asking you something about what you were doing in between, and then you were doing a visualization and stuff like that. And then you were talking, we're talking about consent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how people give it away.
We're talking about if you agree with in the media and the governments are censoring a lot of stuff, and you're saying that this is people are giving their power away and giving it to this kind of entity that supposedly does good for us, but doesn't seem always obvious. So what do you say about that?
So in America, they have their Bill of Rights, I believe it is, and there's one other. And it basically says that nobody can take away your unalienable rights, which is your freedom to your right to liberty.
I think it's the first amendment is about freedom of speech, if I'm not mistaken. First or second?
The Bill of Yeah, but there's three things that they can't take away. And essentially, they can't take away your freedom. It comes down to they cannot take it away, which is unfortunately exactly what they've done.
With
But
COVID, you mean? With COVID, they're
yeah,
taking it away more and more. Yeah.
yeah. But people have given it to them because if they stand up and they make the wrong decision, you know, they've been feared into thinking that could kill people. They're like, we'll do the right thing for others. Whereas you can't censor somebody yet take away somebody else's freedom. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that, you
Right.
know, because people can go, which we were actually having this conversation yesterday with somebody with a post that he shared, and somebody was going, but I don't want to see what you've shared. I don't consent to seeing, you know, your naked or half naked body, whatever it may be. And when it comes to boundaries, so it's not a chicken and egg scenario with boundaries and consent. Boundaries come first,
Right.
and then your scent comes from boundaries. Whatever your boundaries set are, then you consent after that. There has to be a boundary for you to recognize where your consent lies.
Right.
And they either come from a wound, like from fear-based boundaries, or love-based boundaries. And to say, oh, well, I don't want to see that because that's not something I want to see, or I don't agree with that, that is okay. But it's my right to be free in my sharing and my showing that. So you have the responsibility to choose to look elsewhere, to unfollow me, to, you know, whatever it may be. And it's wherever we have rights, we always have responsibilities, right? So
Correct.
it's like physics. There's a push and a pull. You can't say, you know, oh, well, like exactly the conversation yesterday. I don't want to see this, but I'm going to stay here knowing that you've made your, you know, minimum age 18 to try and help with the censorship issues. And I know that this is what you do, but I'm going to complain about it because you're overstepping my boundaries on your page. But then not choose to take steps to make yourself safe and feel comfortable within your own boundaries.
Right. I sometimes I unfollow people, or I snooze them for 30 days because I'm like, I don't want to see another post about this, or but this is just me. I'm sometimes and I still keep friends with them or whatever on Facebook,
Yep.
but I'm not a big fan of censoring on Facebook. But then I have a friend of mine who's like, well, you know, he just left Facebook. I know I have several friends who've either deleted their Facebook or deactivated and just kind of don't use it, or try to very much limit the use.
Yeah.
So it's a very dicey thing because censorship seems to be happening more and more in our society, and somebody that is just a regular person like me, how can you um, create boundaries about with that if they're seemingly violating, you know, you're on this platform that's exercising its power to censor a lot of people.
Yeah, on a private platform, and that's how they get away with it. They're a private company,
Yeah.
but they've got people so hooked into it that unfortunately they control so much. You know, but with that, I don't disagree with the freedom to choose what you want censored. Just like, you know, I don't agree with the COVID vaccine, but I'm not going to stop someone if they're hell bent on getting it. I'm
Yeah.
pro-choice, and that's where I think censorship has just gone wild. You know, with Instagram and Facebook, you know, where they could really help themselves is having options. You know, when you sign up, you get to select what you see, you get to choose your boundaries, and that's where our freedom comes in. You get to select, I do what, you know, do you want to, you know, tick all the boxes of the topics that you want to see. Do you want to see political articles? Do you want to see nude bodies? Do you want to see, you know, birth videos and photos and naked women with their babies? You know, because some people are really triggered by that still. But that can be their choice. And it's, instead of just shutting people down who are sharing information or sharing themselves, because that's, you know, what they're here to do, the choice should be in, you know, back in our hands to choose what we want, you know, and not
Right.
told what we want or told what is right and wrong and what
Yeah.
we shouldn't be looking at and what's scary, you know, like I'm all for pro-choice, but it still blows my mind that people are so scared of a woman's body. You know, the hashtag free the nipple is a banned hashtag.
Well,
So
you
you
know,
can't
but
even,
right.
it's crazy.
Yeah, but this is I think cultural values and stuff like that has a lot to do with it, and they're like, oh, is this um but what more agrees me for me personally is blatant political bias, and but you know, I've
Uh-huh.
ranted on other podcasts about that. um let uh okay, let me since we're talking about similar themes, let me talk about consent. So what's your, so you're talking about consent in social media. Well, let's talk about sexual consent.
Yes.
So, because you told me off air that there's not enough education about that. So,
No.
what's the right understanding about consent? What do people don't know about it?
It's just not taught. You know, we were talking about sex ed in schools. You know, it starts quite young in Australia, but it doesn't go into sex necessarily at, you know, around 9 or 10. I don't know what it's like now. I've been out of school for, you know, a few years, like definitely out of primary school for a while.
Right.
Um, but, you know, you're taught about, you know, girls get taught about menstruation and that we can have a baby and we have to be careful when we do choose to have sex because we can fall pregnant. And the boys get taught about erections and wet dreams and that that's okay and all of that. Or if you go to high school, then, you know, you put a condom on a banana or you watch an outdated video around courting and, you know, whatever it is. But never are we taught about, this is your body. And if you say no, the other person has to respect that. They don't get to go, but I want that, so I get it. You know, and even before it even gets to the sexual side of things, it starts, our consent and our ability to use our voice with our boundaries starts when, you know, our parents are like, go give Auntie Martha a hug. And the kid's like, no. And they're like, no, go give Auntie Martha a hug because she's your auntie, and not listening to the child's choice and their freedom to say, well, no, I don't want to right now, is already taking away their ability. And it's already setting those subconscious programs in going, my voice doesn't matter. So why would I speak up in a situation that I'm uncomfortable in?
Right.
And so until that is something that is guaranteed to be taught in the home in a safe way and providing autonomy for the child and allowing them to choose, I really believe that it should just be at a very base level in schools. You know, sex ed needs to change so that it's not just, oh, the female has to make sure she doesn't get pregnant, because it's also the male's responsibility,
Mm.
you know. And just because the male's horny doesn't mean that the female has to have sex, or, you know, none of this faking orgasm crap, because, you know, somebody, male or female, you know, the partner in the situation, you know, wants to feel good about getting their partner off when they haven't. And it's consent at all levels. It's whether it's, yes, you can touch me at all, or this position's good for me, or no, that position doesn't work for me, even though it does for you. And that can be a really big one in relationships. You know, I see it a lot where the partner, female in particular, in a heterosexual relationship, will say, I don't feel anything, or it's not enjoyable for me in this particular position, but it's the only way that my partner can get off. Help. You know, and it's that wanting to please your partner above yourself, that, you know, when you're actually really connected to yourself, you don't just need one position to get off. You know, there needs to be more openness in our ability to figure out why, you know, why something, why is it that only this works? You know, do we need to do more together to help that? Is there a way that you can listen to my body and the cues that my body gives, that, you know, if you're in a relationship where that's, you know, something that can be built, you know, can you watch for my non-verbal consent? You know, like my partner knows before I say anything if my body's not, you know, in a position to enjoy something. You know, he doesn't even have to ask, or he'll stop.
Right.
You know,
But
what
that
we're
took
doing.
experience, right? That took experience and
Yeah.
try
So
and
that's,
error, I assume.
yes,
Or
that's evolved.
yeah.
You know, if you are in a relationship, consent, I guess, as well, with the education of it. If you give consent once, you can take it away. And that's something that doesn't, you know, isn't taught either. Just
Right.
because I said yes today doesn't mean I'm going to say yes tomorrow. And just because I said yes half an hour ago doesn't mean I can't say no now because I'm uncomfortable.
It's not a binding contract in a way.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's very much, you know, we need to live, just as humans in general, in the moment. You know, Ram Dass, you know, be here now. It's now is not 2 seconds ago. Now is now. So now is different. So what are my boundaries now? You know, what is in alignment for me now was not in alignment for me 20 minutes ago.
Right.
So it's really listening to yourself, and we can't really change the world. And this, you know, this goes so much deeper, but it's, we have all these people trying to, you know, these governments, for example, take a really high level, you know, let's end world hunger,
Yeah.
when they can't even feed their own country. You know, we can't change the world if we're not changing ourselves, because when we change ourselves on an internal level, it, that changes our external reality, not the other way around.
Right.
You know,
That
unless
helps the world as well.
yeah, and it is an automatic ripple. Everybody you come in contact with, your evolution is going to help them in some way, whether you're a reflection to trigger them, to get them to go, oh, what was that? Why do I feel that way? Why is her saying no to me so triggering? You know, why are her firm boundaries and her ability to actually express them, why do I find that so angering? Or you know, if you see somebody setting their boundaries, why aren't I able to do that? You know, we are the permission slip for other people. You know, when we live in our full expression and in alignment, we automatically walking permission slip for others to do the same. And we give them that reflection.
What do you say about sometimes is the I see the rejection of the guy that maybe sometimes the women are not used to, because it's usually the other way around. So and then so the problem seems to be on both sides. Sometimes the uh, the female might also be offended by the lack of consent, and might um, try anyway. I imagine that's rare, I guess, but it happens.
No, it definitely does happen. Just like, there's domestic violence caused by the women. It's not always the men. It's just
Of
statistically higher
course.
that it is. So absolutely. This is something that gets me really fired up, because the stereotypes that women don't rape men and the men that get silenced, I find really frustrating, because they go, oh, you should just be lucky. That, like, no, no, because that's still just as traumatizing for a man to be raped than it is for a woman. It's still taking away your power, it's still crossing your boundaries, and it's still disregarding your consent
Right.
and what you want. There is no difference. Gender doesn't matter in that situation. When it comes to boundaries and consent, gender doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the guy in that position, I don't know how that is, but I think it'd be worse, because society is not
Yeah.
as accepting of a guy being raped as a woman. So if a guy came forward with that, that'd be like almost like mocking him. Like,
Yeah.
why are you saying that?
Why is he complaining? Why are you complaining that somebody forced you to lay down and have them ride you for an hour?
Right.
The guys would, you've seen it before, and there are very few movies that portray it, but there is one, I can't think of what it is. I saw it years ago, but he was mocked for it, because what man, in society's mind, would ever not want sex whenever a woman wants it?
Right. Yeah, it's
You know,
if you remember the name, I'll then put it in the description of the
yeah.
video later. So how did you then develop so then you met your partner and you started
Mhm.
developing this I guess like coaching
This,
method, or what is it?
yeah. So it's a healing tool, really. We
Mm.
don't. It's called the Syzygy method, and it's a self-pleasure based healing tool, essentially. So,
Okay, go on.
so um, you don't need anybody to help you with it. You can literally just do it on your own. But when we do have our clients, we dive really deep with them and get really specific and help them work through it. So the
Just to
Syzygy
be
method.
clear, you're
Mhm.
not there. You're coaching them. There's no other thing involved. There's not like, because I'm just trying to like, there's no like.
We don't run a brothel, no.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
No red lights.
just so the audience is clear, like
Yeah,
there's no misunderstanding here. Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no. So it is an 11-page document. It's actually free to download. Can download, straight from our Instagram pages. It is step by step how to first recognize that, what you want to work through, and then using the pleasure to work through those subconscious blocks, or if you want to manifest, or if you want to like shift energy in your body that is stuck. So you can manifest with it by using the sexual energy, by really focusing on what you're wanting to call in. But like I said before, it's not just, oh, I want $1 million.
Mm.
It's focusing on that feeling of, you know, I want more so I can give more, because I know that's what I'm meant to do. And this is how it's going to feel when I know that, you know, I've set up 6 schools in Africa for, abandoned with, young girls, or just abandoned children, whatever
Oh
it
wow.
may be, but no, I'm just saying, for example, if somebody needs $1
Okay,
million
yeah.
for that,
Right.
and it's the feeling of knowing that service that you've given, not
Mm.
just that you have $1 million, because that's not much to grab onto,
Okay.
really. It's the
So
feeling.
So the end has to be a feeling of service first. What are you gonna?
It doesn't have to be of service, but
Oh,
just with
business.
any
Like business
manifestation.
is a service as well, no? Like any kind of.
Well, it could be, I want to call in if you're trying to manifest a partner.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay,
You
okay.
just manifestation in general, you could really focus on how you feel having this person in your life, and co-creating together, not in a codependent way, because codependency will just mess
not
you
good.
up every day. But just really feeling that. And then if you can't feel yourself in that position and there's something blocking you, then that's where you work on something using self-pleasure. You work on that block. Another way is to work through something that's healing or that's stuck in your body. I get stuck energy sometimes in my traps when I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and it just gets super tight. So I actually build up my sexual energy through self-pleasure, and then I send that energy to the area where the energy's stuck. So it's typically my traps. I send it up there and it clears it. And then when I come to orgasm, then that explosion of energy, it dissipates.
Right. I have a question about that for guys.
Yeah.
Isn't that different? Because I have some friends that practice not orgasms because no orgasms because it's they see it as a loss of vital
Depletion.
energy, vital energy, and also like vitamins, minerals, and stuff like that. There's also in that. So, what do you say to that?
So guys can actually ejaculate and you don't actually have to come. And
Injaculate. What's that?
uh-huh,
What's that?
where you don't actually ejaculate any semen. My partner practices that regularly. So he does still come because it is good to release that and to have that circulation of semen. It is healthy too, but not necessarily all the time. And it can deplete men more than women. Whereas, we can just circulate that energy and we can orgasm over and over again. We have
Right.
that ability. Um, so circulating that, and when you bring the energy through your body, he's so much better at describing the male experience than I
Of
am.
course.
But when he circulates the energy through all of his body, he can feel the pleasure that he would usually just feel through his cock, through the rest of his body. So it's not all just in one area, it's through the whole body. And so you don't have to have that release.
That's the first time
Yeah.
that C word was used on the podcast. So
Oh,
congratulations.
thank you.
So I'm still not
um,
understanding how does that process actually work of not ejaculating, but yeah, explain that a bit more. I'm confused.
I don't know how,
Okay,
like,
okay.
how I would have to get him. You can have a chat with him about it. He can give you the male experience of it all. Um, but yeah, it is a practice. It does take practice, but you can hold it back, and the energy is reserved. And he finds that when we have sex and ejaculates, that his energy is so amplified, because obviously the orgasm, when there's two people and there's more energy than just self-pleasure, is huge. So he's wired, he's like ready to go, and just a dump of chemicals through his body. And he's just like, all right, I'm off. I'm working all day and I'm good. So, yeah, he notices the difference in the feeling as well is, yeah, it's just so much more amplified than it is just through self-pleasure. It's a very different, but that would have
So
to come from him, the specifics.
right. So
um,
basically, you recommend a regular self pleasuring for both genders, but for
yeah.
males, obviously not ejaculating, but in ejaculating, right?
Well, it depends what they want to do. Some men, they don't feel depleted. Some men, they do.
Mm.
Um, sometimes some men do and don't, it depends on the time of day that they're doing it, how long they're doing it for, what they've been focusing on as well. So the other side, beyond just the manifestation and the physical healing, is the subconscious healing. And that's where the Syzygy method was really born, was for that. And that's when, we have something we know we need to work on, whether it's, a lack of self-worth in some department. It could even just be performance anxiety, for men or for women, or it could be body issues, or it could be, being out of alignment, or you might not know exactly what it is, but you can feel that something's not quite right. I've done that before, where I just feel, ugh, and I've started, and midway through, I've, got that download of, oh, okay, that's why I feel like crap, because, I'm not in alignment here. I haven't been listening to my body. I haven't been listening to the cues. I've been, actually seeing the full picture, and that's why, I don't feel great. And then when we use pleasure, pleasure is our birthright, and it is a truth. When we have a subconscious belief that is false, then it's being built out of fear or not knowing, like, we were forced to give Auntie Martha a hug. So we made our 4-year-old self believe that our voice meant nothing. Then if we carry that on as an adult, you can imagine the damage that could do in literally every part of your life, not just in terms of physical touch with somebody. You could not speak up in your job even, and be in the same position for 25 years because you never put your hand up for a promotion because you thought no one was going to hear you anyway.
Right. Self-worth issues, right?
Self-worth in any area. So then when it's fear-based, it's like the lie. It's the ego's way of, and the ego isn't bad. I'm not someone who believes the ego should be killed. It's a dance between being safe for the sake of living, staying alive, versus an unrealistic fear, that is just a subconscious level of what we've taught ourselves from an experience in this life or a past life. And, with karma, but that's a whole nother level.
So you do have a spiritual component of your belief system as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's not part of the course that you're teaching.
No, absolutely not. So, but when you have that fear-based belief, and then you have the truth of pleasure, when you rub them against each other, literally, quite literally, when you're thinking about that during self-pleasure.
Thinking about fear or self-worth issues.
Yeah.
Oh my
It sounds a little bit so when you use that and you're breathing, use your breath to circulate your energy as it's building.
Okay.
When you use that and you have that pleasure rubbing on that truth, on that lie, that subconscious belief that is holding you back, it breaks it down because the lie can't stand up against the truth.
Right. Okay.
And
so it's a form of meditation, you're saying.
Somewhat, I guess. If you can walk and meditate, you can self-pleasure.
And walk at the same time as well. Yeah, maybe.
It's a healing tool. You're recoding your subconscious, on a really powerful level. And sexual energy, that life force energy, is the most powerful energy we have. And to shift any kind of perspective with that is powerful, and that's why I would do it every morning, along with reading, my script and with my manifest, what I wanted to manifest, because it would amplify that so quickly. And, I had in my script and what I would visualize exactly the setting of a job interview and exactly the person I wanted to call in, for my partner. And I quit a job after an interview before I even knew that I had the job, because when I walked in, it looked exactly like what I had written in my script. So I knew, because I felt, I walked in and I instantly knew. I was like, this is my job. This is what I've been waiting for. And I know that
Wow.
this is mine. Nobody can take this away because I know it's already mine. And I gave my notice that afternoon after my interview. And a week later, I had to wait a week to find out, and I got the job.
Wow, that's quitting your job on faith, basically.
Yes, but it wasn't like, it was an absolute knowing to me. I already knew that it had happened. I'd done the work to get that. And that's where you don't have that absolute knowing. You're like, I know that I really want this, but something's holding me back. That's where there's a block that you need to work through. There's some subconscious belief that is holding you back from
Right.
getting there.
So you're saying that if I want to be, let's say, a millionaire or I don't know, a famous movie director or something, so
Mm-hmm.
there's what's holding me back basically is there's a belief system that I can't do it,
Mm-hmm.
and so okay, go on.
Yeah. So there's something in you that doesn't feel worthy. It all comes down to self-worth,
Mm,
you know, at a really, really deep level. There could be 1,000 layers on top of it that you've built on top, and you have to go through every single one of them.
probably is, yeah.
um, and it's figuring out what that is, or it's trauma from a situation that happened, a bad relationship. Oh, I was cheated on, so now I can't trust anybody, because what if it happens again? I don't want to get hurt. And it's a protection mechanism. So it's not that it's bad, but it can also not serve you well if you're still looking at it from fear, instead of recognizing that there was a lesson there for yourself. So it comes back to responsibility as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also have fears around relationships and stuff like that. I know I have probably a bunch of stuff around it as well. And so does your method then, but I guess it's different if you're doing it solo versus it's probably more effective if you're doing it as with somebody else, right?
The Syzygy method is specifically solo based.
Okay.
We are going to be bringing out a transformative sex method that will be used, for people to bring all of what we're putting forward for them together, and using that with a partner or partners, or, to be able to have safe, consensual, transformative sex, so the other person doesn't necessarily need to be aware of what you're transforming in that moment.
Hmm.
But if you want them to, they can. Or if it's your partner, or a regular lover, then that you're open to having that conversation with. If they are aware of it and they want to help you work through that, or if it's with a partner that you want to create more connection with, or you want to manifest something together, the power of two people's intention is just going to be so much bigger than just one.
Right.
Uh, Oren and I use the solo method side by side. So we'll be self-pleasuring side by side, working on our own things. Sometimes we know what they are, sometimes we don't. And at the end, then we can come together and orgasm together, whether that's actually in sex or just side by side. And just the energy that's built up in the room helps as well, because it's really amplified, and it amplifies our individual energy. So
Hmm. So okay, so when you coach people on this, do you
mhm.
give them specifically like so it sounds like the method is about um like this is my insecurity, this is I don't feel worthy, so I will think about it as I'm and with the Is that it? Well, once you're rubbing it out, basically. Wow. I never
Yeah.
thought I'll talk about these things here. So, so how, what's your role in that? And do you advise them what kind of affirmation, do they hold affirmations in mind, or what, say affirmations? That this will be highly distracting.
um, you can, but when I work with clients, not about necessarily what they're doing, although, you know, we do discuss that to see if they're, you know, where their mind's at during it, because that's really important, what their intention is when they go into it. But it's working through finding what they need to be working on specifically, you know, and doing some of that work outside of the self-pleasure. Because if we can take some of those layers away that are the real surface ones, the big transformation comes when you get to that root cause and you can rewrite what that, you know, why your self-worth in this area isn't there or is so lacking.
Right.
You know, it's like going to a doctor and they go, well, here's a band-aid for your cut, or oh no, you have like a reoccurring gut issues. Here's a tablet, it'll make you feel better, versus going to a naturopath or an alternative doctor and they go, oh, this is the root cause of your gut issues and we'll treat that. You know, there's no point going, oh, I'm not going to stay with this partner because I think they might cheat on me. You know, instead
You
of
might be
going,
right, though. They might cheat on you, though.
right. But, you know, you see so many people going, oh, I'm in this great relationship, I'm scared I'm going to fuck it up. Then you go, well, the only way you're going to do that is if you self-sabotage because you think that you're not worthy of it. So instead of being scared of that and, you know, going, what do I do? Well, what you do is you work on where those fears are coming from and how to get rid of them, you know, how to break down where they come from, why they're there. And then, yeah, it's just a rewriting of your mindset, you know, your belief systems, and turning the negative beliefs into truth, you know.
Yeah. So, wow. So you basically find, but how do you find the layer of what it is exactly that's bought? So it sounds like it's fairly a simple thing, but you still have to find out. Through conversation, do you find out exactly what is the problem that the person is having?
Yes. Yeah, everybody is different because everybody's had a different life experience. So the root cause may be the same. You know, everybody's pain typically comes from abandonment or lack of self-worth, you know, in some way. But somebody's abandonment might show up because they were literally abandoned, you know, or it could be because they showed their mum or dad a painting when they were younger and they're like, not now, mummy or daddy has to go to work. But then they never come back to that. But there's still abandonment. So the root cause is still going to be abandonment, but it's, or I'm not good enough, you know, so that can be self-worth too. And, you know, then the abandonment's going to be linked to your self-worth because you're abandoned, then why? Oh, I wasn't good enough. So it comes to pulling all those strings again because we're so multidimensional. And it's figuring out, and it is going right back, you know, it's like going into a doctor's and they're like, what's your medical history in your family? Because it's all ancestral trauma as well, you know. A parent can only do what they know unless they figure out, you know, or sorry, a child when they have kids, unless they understand why their parents beat them up or, you know, left them behind all the time. They're just going to think that that's normal unless they come to understand that that's not normal and that you don't do that and why you don't do that or why they did that, because they may have been abused or they were abandoned, so they don't really know any different. So it's healing, and that's where healing ancestral trauma comes from. It's what has been a pattern in the family, and how do you break that? How do you recognize where the problem is and what the cause of that problem is?
So like, do your clients, did they call you before, or are you like, oh, and before I'm gonna do it, I need to speak about exactly what I'm gonna think about, and does it work that way? Do you specifically give them an instruction like, here, listen, this is what you need to think about this particular issue or this particular event? I'm just trying to make it sense of this. Like, what is
So sometimes, I mean, because the Syzygy method is a free download, we wanted it accessible for everybody. A
Yeah.
lot of the times I've already used it or tried to. It can be difficult for men particularly. We don't have to keep something hard to self-pleasure. So when you're thinking about something that's painful or uncomfortable, it can be a little bit more difficult to, stay aroused. So
right. That's what I'm thinking.
so especially if it's a new type of practice, that can be a little bit difficult. And a bit of audio stimulation or a bit of visual stimulation can always help.
Right. But you're saying later on that even pain might be arising, which would then lead to maybe other problems. No, I'm kidding.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
But
we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there.
no, but yeah, I mean, sometimes it is, we've both been in a situation where we're like, you weren't specific enough. You need to really focus on this. It will probably be painful. It is sometimes the first time that a lot of people have cried after self-pleasure. And, then they realize that there's a lot of shame around that. Or, when people cry after sex, that happens because it's such a release of energy that it does shift energy. There's, emotion is stuck in our body everywhere. That's how disease happens. Like you mentioned earlier, when something's not right, it only has to be one thing. Or if, energy and emotion is stored in our body from events that happen, traumatic events, happy or sad. And that could, for a woman who has body weight issues or body image issues because society tells her she needs to look like a Kardashian,
Right.
and she doesn't, but she's eating salad every day, or, eating what is recommended, a really well-balanced meal from a naturopath or a nutritionist. But there might be emotions stuck in her body from trauma that she's experienced in the past. And that is literally the only thing stopping her, because it's holding on and she doesn't know that she has to release that.
Right.
So that can be worked on. And it's so powerful. Like, I've experienced that myself. I've been able to let go of weight when I released emotion. So
Okay. Very interesting meditation practice. We've learned something new. So how can people get in contact with you if they want to your coaching?
So best on Instagram at im.azura, Azura, or on our business page at Sexual Syzygy, and Syzygy is SYZYGY. And the link tree in our bio has all the information.
Cool. I'll put the links in the description so people can see. Well, I'm just gonna say, use this advice with their own responsibility. We're not responsible for that. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, not medical advice at all. If you are concerned about anything with your body, seek a professional's help.
Also, it occurred to me, what would be your advice? Sometimes, when a man is young, sometimes they do it too many times per day. So would
Yes.
you advise them to uh, to not do that, to maybe limit to once or twice per day?
Yeah, so it's not, you know, once a day or even 2 or 3 times a week. You know, if you're having the real intention behind it, that is, you know, recommended for the Syzygy method. It's not just a, you know, going at it like a jackhammer. You know, I know, you know, I know from watching Orion that it's slow central strokes because you're working through pain. You know, you're breathing, you're circulating that energy. So you don't want to cause, you know,
Damage.
burns. Yeah, exactly, or damage, or, you know, you don't want any yeah, you don't want to cause any burns down there because nothing will be fine.
Burns.
um
Wow, that's quite intensity right there. Okay, burns.
hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, like friction burn.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, it's not meant as just something to get off. It's a 20 to 45-minute practice, we say, is our recommended duration. So it's not all about the climax, then you don't even have to orgasm. It's just that energy amplifies, you know, and that's where you can have a real shift. But you can have a shift without even climaxing. So it's not necessary. So,
Mm.
and then coming back to what you were saying before about losing energy, you don't actually have to come if you don't want to. You can work through it because you're circulating that sexual energy anyway through the
Mm.
process.
And do you put your the chakra system, do you put your energy up, or do you do anything specific with that?
Um, it sort of all starts because it becomes so dynamic in the sacral and your sacral chakra. Then I bring it up just through all of them. If you find it gets kind of stuck anywhere, then that's usually a pretty good indication where the energy is stuck. And it's not just in like your chakra system, it's anywhere in your body.
Mm.
And that's where you can have real emotion come up, you know, and we always make sure to let people know and our clients know that any emotion that comes up is okay. You need to feel it. If it's anger and you're wondering why you're getting angry, why you're self-pleasuring, that's normal. That's okay. If you cry, keep going. That's okay. If you laugh uncontrollably, that's
Wow.
okay. You know, you have to feel it all to, you know, you have to go through it to
Mm.
move past it and to heal. It's not something you can just build a bridge over. You have to literally go through it. So,
Very interesting,
yeah.
fascinating subject. So
You'll
what do
have
you
to
call
download it and try.
what do you call yourself, what your um sexual issues coach? No, sorry.
Actual energy.
Sexual energy coach.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, very interesting podcast. I hope people enjoyed it. Azura Jane, everybody. Jade, sorry. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
And thank you, everybody, for watching or listening.